So the first time I met Pat Conroy was through his books. I read The Prince of Tides in college. And, I know he's compared to Thomas Wolfe a lot, and I think that probably tickled him quite a bit. That line of literary descent is pretty clear. And when I read The Prince of Tides, I felt the same way I felt when I read Look Homeward Angel. And the impression and what it made clear to me was this, that our lives are worth literature, right? It doesn't matter where you come from or who your parents were or how broken or torn apart your home was or how unvalued your community seems to other communities. The life you live is worth writing about and worth investigating. And that was important to me. When I left Western North Carolina and moved down to Louisiana, I went down there to become a better writer, and I was lucky enough to sit at the feet of Ernest Gaines, who was another person who told me, my life has been worth literature. I grew up poor on a plantation in a former slave cabin, in a sharecropper's cabin, and my work proves that my life is worth literature. And so Pat Conroy fell in that same vein for me in terms of instilling your literary pursuits with a certain element of biography to not only make it feel real to you, but make it important to you, because we all read to discover ourselves and to learn something about somebody else, but we also write to discover ourselves and thereby learn something about somebody else. And I think Pat Conroy taught me that. So when I read Prince of Tides, it was like the first time I read Look Homeward Angel, and I saw the place that I knew on the page. Or when I went down to Louisiana, I had read, Ernest Gaines' books before I went down there, and I went down and found the place he wrote about there in Southwest Louisiana. But the first time I met Pat in person was at the South Carolina Book Festival, and this was probably in 2013, I would say. And I was in a room with him, and I was aware that I was in the room with him because it was like being in a solar system with a black hole, because all of the energy was just going toward him, not because of anything that he was doing, just by his very presence, right? Everybody in the room was aware, that's Pat Conroy right there. And I didn't want to go up and bother him or fawn over him, but he came up to me and he said, "Hey, I read your book, This Dark Road to Mercy." And he talked about my book. And my wife was with me, and later we just said, how amazing that somebody with that level of success comes up to somebody that nobody's ever heard of and says, "Hey, I read your book. Let's talk about it for a little bit." He didn't have to do that, and I still would have read his books had he never done that. But that left a huge impression on me, that somebody who had achieved that literary stature and that power and that prominence went up to the least known person in the room and said, "Let's talk about your book," right? All these people here want to talk about me and my books, but let's talk about your book. And he said, "So are y'all down here for the conference?" And I said, "Yeah, but we're going to go to Hilton Head for a little vacation. We were about to have a baby." And he said, "Well, get my phone number from the person who runs the press here in South Carolina at the university and give me a call. We'll go have lunch while you're in Hilton Head." And I thought, yeah, right. Like, you would have lunch with me. That's really nice of you. So I didn't bother to get his phone number. And then I guess we'd been at Hilton Head for about 3 days, and I had my phone in the room. We'd been on the beach, and I went back and there was a message. And it said, "Hey, it's Pat Conroy. We having lunch or what? How much longer are you down here? Give me a call. Love you. Lots of love." So I called him, and we went up to Beaufort and had lunch with him and his wife, Sandra. And it was one of the most charming 2 or 3 hour experiences of my life. I'll never forget the graciousness and the warmth and kindness and encouragement, and also how he talked to my wife. Being the partner of a writer is not easy, right? Especially in a literary conversation. But as much, if not more, of the conversation was directed to, so what do you do? What are you interested in? What is your life? What is your story? And that left a big impression on me as well. So yeah, those are my experiences with Pat.